You don't want to be the guy who this happened.
Exactly. And then I introduce a third layer, that guy.
It's like you behind the curtains.
Then again, if you look at us now talking in public about
Yeah.
my thing that I didn't want to talk about at all in the beginning, it's actually nice. Like, this could help someone else, and even also myself, actually, to talk about it.
Yeah,
So
I think so too. You know why? Because I think talking about it is a part of accepting it. And just by the fact that I ask you a question and in the podcast you said something about it, subconsciously maybe you have accepted that it is okay that has happened to me. I accept it. But I have moved on. Or maybe you haven't, but just the accepting is a very big thing in life.
True. And I think, honestly, this is a huge moment for me, to be honest.
Yeah.
And a huge moment of acceptance.
Every day. No.
Na 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 na. Do.
I can hear the sound of
Birds.
violence long before it began.
Okay. Great.
Ready?
Yeah. Hello and welcome back to Hearts Wide Open, the men's health podcast.
Yeah.
Yay. We're here with the man himself, Surush, one and only.
It's Arush.
It's Surush.
Yes. And I'm here also with Dennis, our lovely co-host.
That's me.
Happy to be here to record another episode of Hearts Wide Open.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Do you want to start with what we're going to discuss today?
Sure. I mean, yeah, this is our 20th episode. What a milestone.
Well done.
Congratulations.
High five. We did a high five for people who are listening.
Yeah, that was the clap that just destroyed your eardrums.
Probably. Sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. Yeah. Yeah, the important lesson on celebrating success. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's a huge success that we're still here after 20 episodes. And since this is such a milestone, and because we always like to re-listen to previous episodes to also see what we did there, what was good, what can we improve. We also talked to some of you guys, some of our listeners, to get some feedback on, for example, like what is the perfect length for an episode, which one were episodes that you really enjoyed, which ones you think we could go deeper on a little bit. Because sometimes I think it's easy for us to stay on the surface and sometimes we drift off indeed. And then but we're trying to get really good at not doing that too much, but like really going deep with each other. And I think these conversations will go better and better, and sometimes not as good as other times, but
I think this is still kind of the natural flow of the conversation, because at the end this is hearts wide open, and we try to keep the things really not planned. We have an outline and we still try to talk from our heart. So if something happens, we still try to dig it there.
Yes. So we're trying to have brotherly, real, authentic conversations. And so one of the feedbacks that we got that we wanted to discuss today, I'm not a big fan of replying to feedback, but this is not a reply, but more of a investigation. Yes, because we were asking ourselves, do we actually do that? Or why are we doing that? And it's about using language, I think, to change or create distance between us and the topic. I think this sounds maybe a little bit abstract, but like think of a moment where, for example, you talk about something that happened in the past, and then you go like, oh yeah, the Dennis of 5 years ago would have reacted like this or would say like that, instead of me just saying 5 years ago I would have said this. You know, I add this extra layer of the Dennis of 5 years ago. So I'm talking to myself in the third person. Yeah, so I was wondering, like, why do we do that? Because we did listen to some episodes and we do it.
Yeah, we do.
Like it's a proven
We
thing.
do it.
We do it. So it's not that we're not doing it, but we were wondering why are we doing that.
But my point to Dennis was I'm not sure where it comes from. So this is an episode to investigate where this indirect reference, or I would put it a third reference to yourself, where does it come from? Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's a language thing. I mean, we're using language to do something, and I think it's something to do with our subconscious more than our conscious, because I don't think we do this on purpose in that moment.
No.
So it's really something that happens, I think, when we talk about something that is maybe something that happened in the past that we're not proud of. Like, sometimes I'm not proud of who I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You know, I think like, that's behind me now. And maybe that tells my subconscious, like my subconscious then reacts in a way that I'm talking about that guy as if it's another guy. It's not me. You know, it's like the Dennis from 5 years ago, not me 5 years ago.
Honestly, I would have loved to do this conversation with you without pointing up the point. Like without telling we're going to discuss this, because I feel like now this is in our conscious.
Okay.
And I really would have loved to do this with someone that is not aware of the topic, to really dig into it.
But then like investigate them basically. Yeah. But what if they don't do it?
Well, that's a more interesting to think about. Why do I do it? Because if I ask you, tell us about the moment that you were not proud of yourself 5 years ago, how would you, do you have an example to tell us? Or something happened a few years ago.
Something that happened a few years ago. Okay. Well, oh my God, I have one example in my head. Now it can't leave me anymore. And this is really something that I'm not finished with.
If you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to go into the super detail because I'm not fully aware of. I haven't fully processed it myself, but this is an example of where I don't talk about it at all. And so that's maybe not an example of me doing it in the third person, but I do feel like I'm a third person in that.
But can you just tell the story?
Yeah. So basically, to have it short, someone overstepped my boundaries. And basically sexually harassed me in that way. And you. Yeah, and when I say someone sexually harassed me X years ago, it feels like it was me who this has been done to. Actually, now I feel it. If I would say someone harassed the Dennis from 5 years ago, it would feel like it's another Dennis. It's another person. And this right now feels better to me because I can distance myself from it. Because I'm not fully over what happened. And I'm not fully, like, I don't know how I want to look at it. I have some steps every couple years or every now and then I think about it. And time helps. Yeah, you also look at me because I never told you this story. Because only like a couple people in the world know, and now the podcast knows.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I'm just giving you some space to process it. Yeah, man. So I'm still processing it, and I think it's also gonna. That's brave of you to share.
Thanks, man. Yeah. It was quite tough. I don't want to talk about the details of the thing itself. But I can now. I don't talk about it with anyone except like 2 or 3 people who I'm very close with, or who I got very close with. They know about this story because I felt like I wanted to share and open up fully. That's maybe one of the last stories I share before you know me fully.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if we want to come back to the point, how did you feel back then?
When it happened or after?
Yeah, when it happened.
When it happened, I was in a shock and frozen, and it was like a out of body experience almost. Okay. Like I did not. I just don't know. I just let it happen also in a way, and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, this
So
is
you're
not what
frozen.
I want. Yeah, I knew this is not what I want. I wanted out, but I couldn't move. And I think, I'm still like, I still, this is a very premature topic for me to talk about because I haven't thought about it, but this is also a safe space where I can be opening up about these things.
Sure.
Yeah, it's the first time I'm openly talking about it in this way, and I think so far I've been kind of creating distance between me and this topic by not talking about it openly, and now I'm very much feeling like I'm owning this topic, to be honest, just by opening up about it here. And
how do you feel about it now?
Now that I'm sharing this, tense, also relieved.
Okay.
It's a weird one because it's tense and relieved. So
that is, I think they can come together.
Yeah. I think I feel strong as well and like relieved because I feel like I let something out that was creating pressure from inside me. And also I do see I see the value in sharing this because I think we never talk about men being sexually harassed.
That is correct.
And it's almost a thing that doesn't exist in our minds, in our society. And then when it happens, the man is I often feel scared then I will not be seen as a man anymore because I wasn't able to protect myself in this moment. But then, I also want to be an example to other men that this happened to, and also show the people out there that this can happen to anybody, and that you can also come back from that, and that it doesn't have to define you. And I think maybe that's the thing. I didn't want this to define me and be like a thing on top of my head. Oh yeah, that's the guy that this happened to, you know? And I did it again. I did use passive language. That's the guy, like some dude, not me. That's Dennis, who this happened to.
You said you didn't want to be the guy who this happened to.
Yeah, I didn't want to be the guy who got sexually harassed. I don't want to carry that label.
So this is, when you were talking, I formed this hypothesis of why we use this passive language. And this example that you said, you didn't want to be that guy who this happened to. And I feel this is a form of detaching your current identity from your previous one. So you don't... I got goosebumps.
But the thing is, then it means that in the past it was my identity, but it was never my identity.
It was never your identity.
Yeah, maybe for myself, but for
I feel like when we use passive language, as I would say a third person language referring to ourselves, I look at it as we have skinned one layer. You no longer associate yourself with that person. And if you do, maybe you haven't still processed that thing. That's a part of you that is attached to you. You know what I mean? But when I say, now coming back to my example, so if I want to now talk about the example for me, in some of the episodes, for example, when I talked about how I used to be more of a closed person, suppress my emotions, and I don't know, be shy when I wanted to say something, I refer to this person as the Surush from 5 years ago would have never done this. Surush from 5 years ago would have not said no to a friend. And now, looking at this situation of why do I refer to a third person, because I feel like that person is not me anymore. That I am detached from that identity toward forming a new one. That's why I don't say me from 5 years ago or 5 years ago I did this, because I feel like I'm and identity wise I'm distant from that person. Distant, maybe not the word, but I'm detached in a good way.
Okay.
Might be also in a bad way.
And what would be the bad way? Because the good way is I'm over that person. I am now a new person. I want to leave it behind me, so I detach myself from it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I feel like if you don't process what happened and if you run away from it, then it's still a part of you. And you still feel that way.
And then you're using the language
Active.
to manipulate basically yourself, or what do you mean?
What I mean, for example, in my case, if I, for example, a lot of my parents, when we were kids, they have fights, and I feel like when I think about it, it's still little Sarush or little me from 5 years ago.
Mhm.
I don't detach that personality from me,
Mm-hmm.
because it's still a part of me that I did not process,
Mm-hmm.
that it is with me.
Mm-hmm.
So for that,
But then you're saying, because for me it looks like this: if you say the Suresh from 5 years ago was sad, then I think, okay, so you are not. It seems for me as a person outside that you are
Yeah.
trying to show me that today you're not sad,
no, that is
but
not.
you were 5 years ago. But that's behind you now. But when you say I was sad 5 years ago, not the Surush, but I was sad 5 years ago, I'm like, okay, cool. You were like, it's you, it's more direct.
I know what you mean.
I feel like, why are we introducing a extra layer of distance?
I don't know.
Like,
This is a.
because what does it do to other people? I think this is also what our listeners told us.
Sure.
So the impact on our listeners is that they feel that we're distancing ourselves from ourselves.
Distancing ourselves from ourselves.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then that's the impact that it can have on others. And when you tell me a story from Surush from 5 years ago, from 10 years ago, I'm less engaged than if you would say, let me tell you my story from 5 years ago, or something like that. It's like,
Yeah, maybe mentally I put that person behind.
and sometimes it's because we moved on.
Yeah.
And I think other times because we cannot move on.
Yeah.
But then we're trying to hide that part of us, maybe.
This is what I meant by negative.
Nice one. So basically, you can use it for two things. So you can
the things we discovered. I don't know.
Well,
might
yeah.
also be more.
True for us. Yeah. So great. So if you wanna create distance because you've developed from that moment, you're not that person anymore.
Yeah.
You can it can be a tool to use the third person,
Which I think for this, you accepted it.
Yeah.
And you say, I know who I was and I know how it happened and I accepted it, but I now move on to be.
But for my example, this also happened, let's say 5 years ago, but I'm not over it and I haven't moved on necessarily. I'm gradually doing that, but it's a long process.
Yeah.
But so now I'm not using passive language. I'm not talking about it at all because I feel like it's still within me and I haven't overcome it.
Mm-hmm. But what I heard in your words was, you don't want to be the guy who this happened to.
Exactly. And then I introduce a third layer, the third person again, that guy.
It's like you behind the curtains.
Yeah, but then again, if you look at us now talking in public about my thing that I didn't want to talk about at all in the beginning, it's actually nice. This could help someone else and even also myself actually to talk about it.
Yeah,
So
I think so too.
It's a good one.
I think so.
To observe.
Because you know why? Because I think talking about it is a part of accepting it.
Mm-hmm.
And just by the fact that I asked you a question and in the podcast you said something about it, subconsciously maybe you have accepted that it is okay. That in that moment in my life that has happened to me, I accept it. But I have moved on. Or maybe you haven't, but just the accepting is a very big thing in life.
True. And I think honestly this is a huge moment for me, to be honest.
Yeah.
And a huge moment of acceptance.
Yeah.
So I mean that's a nice thing. So we looked at how does it impact us? Why do we do it? What does it do to others? It can create a layer of distance for people who are bystanding or listening.
Understand.
But for us, it also serves a purpose sometimes to leave something behind or to not own something yet because we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, the question that we ask ourselves is, does it serve us now to do that? And, honestly, my answer before was clear, but now it's not so clear anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Okay,
really...
let me think about it.
Yeah. Well, I can maybe already start while you're
Sure.
thinking about it. But like for me, I think it can serve us. It's language. It's a tool. So I think using third person language can serve us to make a point, to distance ourselves from something, to not open up about something that we're not ready to open up for. Also, I think it's a dangerous tool because our subconscious can use this tool as well. And when we're letting it, like our subconscious do the thing, then it can mostly just create distance to other people. So basically, yeah, it can serve us to distance ourselves from ourselves, but not always. And it's good to look at it in that way. Like, does it serve me right now? Does it not serve me right now? Does it help others? Does it help me? And then, I mean, this is in the middle of a conversation, so I don't know if you have all that time to think about it. But maybe, we can just stop for a moment when we catch ourselves using this third person. I think now, like of my mom, for example. Sometimes when I was a kid, she was angry at me because I did something. She would be like, "Oh, the man does this and that again," you know. But she called a little boy the man, like as a joke,
Yeah.
The man is the man thinks he's so smart,
Yeah.
but the man was her child, me.
Okay.
And like in German it sounds much more plausible, to be honest. But yeah, it's interesting.
How is this related to the topic?
Yeah, good question. Well, I think she was hiding her anger behind making a joke that I am a little man, She's like, "Oh, the little man wants food now, yeah? He wasn't hungry 5 minutes ago." But she created this distance because she didn't want to make fun of me. Like, "Oh, you stupid child," but more like, "Oh, the little man." Not to hurt my feelings, but maybe also to process it in a funny way. Like, "Oh, you weren't hungry, but now you want sweets." But not you, but like the little man. Oh, the little man wants sweet, but didn't want to eat the healthy food.
This is also interesting that sometimes maybe the third person reference comes from a perception of you that exists in the world. That maybe at work you're the little man, you know
Nice
what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. But do you
Maybe-
want to explain it more, maybe?
I would like to explain it more. I think we briefly talked about it also in our last episode with Jaideep. If you want to listen, it's a great episode. That we talked about the masks that we put on when we are with different people, and there is a you that is Dennis you, that's your self-perception of you. But there exist multiple Dennises out in the world. That one is my perception of you, and there is a Dennis at work, which colleagues form a perception around. And probably for most of the people, these are not the same personalities, or they're not the same perceptions. Because even this goes back in a book that I recently read, but even the perception that you have from you is different from what I have from you. And then so you, that's a lot of yous now. You the best. That was not correct. You think you know you the best because you have all these perceptions of you that are connected. But maybe no, that didn't make any sense. I lost the point.
I think what you said first was right. You know you the best.
That is correct.
But my question is, how clear can you see?
How clear can you see?
Like, I
yourself?
I think if you spend no time figuring out who you are, what you like, what your values are, what your morals are, if you spend no time on that, then you cannot even clearly see who you are. But if you can see through, like if you have a very clean windshield and you can see all of you, like, I am this person, I like these things, I have these values that I live by, these are the activities I enjoy, this is how I keep my life balanced, this is how I am to my friends, my family. Like, if you're if you know all these things about yourself and you're like spending time figuring these things out again and again, because it changes also with time.
True.
I think then you are the person who knows you the best.
Correct.
At the same time, I do believe that you know me in your own way. My parents know me in another way. My brothers,
they're not the same. This is the point that I was trying to make.
They're all different. I feel like every person is a puzzle, and all these people hold a piece to the puzzle. True. But you are the only one who can see the whole puzzle. So
the way I know you is not the same that you think I know you.
Oh yeah, no, that's another one. I think it's like you are what you think what other people think you are.
Something like
that. That one is from a book. I know which one you mean.
Yeah.
You are what you think other people
think you are.
So basically, I think I am what you think I am.
Yes.
Yeah,
but that's not what I think you are.
That's another story. That's more like judging myself on things that I don't even know. True. So I think I know how you think about me, and based on that, I judge myself. But I think that's another topic, though.
It is okay, but let's go back to the layers of onions. What I meant is that the personality that you put out in different environment might be different. And when you refer to Soroush at work, the Soroush that is with his friend, that the Soroush is from 5 years ago, maybe they are different people. Maybe they are different versions of you. And that's sometimes why I unconsciously refer to him as a different person. Because, I don't know, I think Soroush who is in traveling is different than Soroush who is in Amsterdam. Because these two people have different struggle. And this is a great example of how you just saw I refer to myself as a third person. Because, when I'm traveling, I have different struggles. When I'm here, I have different struggles. So it kind of forms two separate versions of me in my head. I feel like that when I tell stories, maybe subconsciously they are different, but it's me at the end.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking. But then if I look from my view, I think it's all the same person.
Yeah, you think that, but I have different energy when I'm traveling.
That's all right.
That is all right.
I do too.
But I think maybe what I want to say, maybe this is why some people refer to as themselves a third person.
Could be another reason, indeed.
But for me,
but does it serve you? Like that was the question you didn't
does it serve me?
Does it serve you to do that? Like, and when does it serve you? When doesn't?
I never thought about it, to be honest, but I don't think my answer is super accurate right now. But so far it has served me. It's not like I ran away from it, because now from the talks we had, for me it's about attachment. So I still feel attached to something. I say I did it. I felt it. I loved that person how many years ago. I don't say Soroush 5 years ago loved that person. This is a great example.
True.
I loved that person 5 years ago. And if I feel that attachment as a part of me, and I brought it to myself, with myself until now, and I carry it, I still use active language. But if something happened, whatever I processed, and it's not a part of your aura or body anymore, and I accepted it and I moved on a little bit from it, I used passive language.
But then those are things that you want to leave behind.
For me, I think maybe they have served.
Okay, so it's not, so there's active things, there's things that you want to leave behind. And then I think there's a third bucket of just things that happened in the past with they're just there. And those things, I think it would serve us to use direct language so that the audience or whoever you're talking to can be more engaged. Because in those cases, it doesn't matter if you do it or not, right? Oh, nice. So you got a nice conclusion here.
I think so.
Cool.
Based on what we think.
I think this is a great example. I think this is exactly how we talk in person, but in private as well, I think. It's still a bit more natural in front of a camera, but this was basically how we talk about these type of topics. So what can we do? So I'm not the bucket of, okay, it's still active for me. I'm still processing it. That's me. I love that. I loved that person 5 years ago. That is anyway, we're using active language. Then we're using the third person about things that we want to leave behind. The Dennis of 5 years ago did not know how to read and write. I'm not proud of that. I want to leave that behind. Doesn't define me as a person. Okay, the Dennis of 5 years ago could not read or write. Whatever. But then there are things like 5 years ago I went on a trip to Spain. Okay? Here it doesn't make sense to say the Dennis of 5 years ago went on a trip to Spain. It would just create distance, but for no reason, So I think in those examples, that's a great moment to actually think on, let me just use the direct language, because it will be more personal for also the person I'm talking to. I feel like now by repeating it, I made it unclear again for some reason.
No, I understand what you mean. You want the audience or the person that you talk to feel more involved and personal. So that's why maybe if it's active, I 5 years ago went to did this and that and that. Maybe it sounds that you are there more with me rather than now I put myself from 5 years ago here and I'm giving you a third person view.
Yeah.
That's more observant.
True.
Versus I'm taking your hand and let's go together to 5 years ago. So I understand the point. But at the end, I think it also comes to language. Because now, while we were talking, I was thinking, I don't think I ever used passive stuff with feelings. I always say I felt like this. I felt scared. I felt lonely. I felt in love. I felt... And I take them with me. I never say 3 years ago that Soroush felt that way.
Yeah.
I don't think you do too. I don't know. Do you?
Let's see. I mean, now that we've talked about it for half an hour.
Yeah, now we're super conscious.
Yeah, and I think in preparation, and this is like, let us give some behind the scenes to our listeners. So we've prepared a rough outline for this episode, which is just a couple questions, and then the last one is what can we do instead? Okay, and now I'm thinking, and this is how the podcast changes.
Yeah.
While we were recording, because now, like, I went into this topic with let's not use third person at all. Why are we doing this? I wanted to discover that. Why are we creating passive language? Why are we using it? Now, while we're doing the podcast, we realize, okay, sometimes it actually helps and it serves a purpose. So now I cannot say or ask the question, what can we do instead? Because we just established sometimes it's not a bad thing.
No.
So our takeaway now, instead of doing something different necessarily or by force, I think it's to, and this is an invite to everyone out there as well. When you catch yourself using passive language or third person, think about it. Why am I doing this? Am I trying to hide something? Is there something I'm holding on to that is actually not part of me anymore? Just figure out why am I using third person? And if you establish that, this time it was a very good usage of it, that's all good. But if you realize, I'm hiding something, I'm suppressing something, running away from something, I'm getting tense just thinking about my example again, because I was hiding that for sure for a long time. Then maybe it's worth to pause and correct yourself even in that moment, and you can even tell other people about it. I was using passive language here, but actually I didn't want to create distance between you and me, and then use active language. And I think that can really improve our connection to other people too, because then we're opening the room for vulnerability and authenticity.
Are you okay?
I'm feeling like on a plate like this,
naked on a plate.
Yeah, like super open.
That's okay.
But
have you ever felt that me referencing this third point created distance between us when I say a story?
Maybe it's
or you never noticed.
Maybe it's also a bit of a cultural thing, to be honest, because we had this conversation in a different. I do feel like it, that and I feel myself also sometimes doing it. But I'm more aware when you're doing it because I'm in the listening mode.
But even before the feedback, or were you aware?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the term the Surush from X years ago.
Yeah.
That one was already in my head. Like we've done like that one I've heard a few times. I think that's the only example that comes back. The Surush from then ago, and I put it I think in a similar box with the other small like frustration I had, which we talked about. Like I think this is called troll because
we don't have to.
No, let's talk about it. It's very short. So basically, Surush grew up in Iran. I also have Iranian background, but I grew up in Germany. And in Germany, when we do we're going to do something, we say, let's make bread. Okay, so in Germany we would say, I'm going to make bread for you. And in Iran, it would be something different, but translates, I'll try to make bread for you or something.
It's like, we're gonna try to make bread. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, so it's like
uncertain.
It's uncertain, exactly. And then my personal frustration with Surush was like, let's record on Sunday. And his response was, I'll try. I'm like, bro, we're setting up mics. We're having the studio here.
Yeah, but that's a cultural thing.
That's a cultural thing. But maybe also an interesting one to look into. Why in Iran it's more like, let's see what happens.
I know actually why. But this is irrelevant, so I'm not going to.
If you want to know, send us a message and Surush will personally reply with a voice message explaining Iranian culture to you.
There's actually a book about this concept.
Don't spoil it because we want people to reach out to you.
Yeah, sure. If you want to, about this topic and uncertainty and how it relates to a company's culture. Not a company, sorry, a country's culture. Feel free to reach out. I would be happy to talk to you about it.
Send Surush messages on Instagram or via our Hearts Wide Open Instagram account.
Yes.
Or you can send us a voice message on Spotify or wherever you're listening. There should be a link on the bottom. It has anchor.fm/something. If you click on that, you can send us a voice message. And we will maybe even reply to it on the podcast if it's relevant for the podcast. Otherwise, you'll reply. Yeah, that would be super cool.
Yeah,
but otherwise you'll respond in person. And while you're on Spotify, also make sure to scroll up, go to those little rating, stars. Like that little star on top of our profile page, and click on it and rate us 5 stars if you like what we're doing. If you want more of these conversations about men's health, and we're always really looking forward to your input. So
share it with your friends, or if you're a lady listening, share it with your boyfriends, girlfriends, brother. And I think at the end, the topic we talk about is still relevant to the ladies, but we're just making open space for men to also just share everything that they want to. And it will be great to engage with our content. It will really help us.
Boom. Let's go. So this episode is officially over. So make sure to head over, rate, and message us, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace out.
See you later.
Bye-bye.